Hello, Miss Higgs. Today is your post-conference from the lesson observation that took place on June 24th. I just wanted to go over your lesson. You covered the Colorado Curriculum Standards 3.1a, points 1 and 2, which is drawing scaled picture and bar graphs, and then solving 1 to 2 step problems using the information from the bar graphs. So first off, how do you think the lesson went? Overall, I think my lesson was successful. Starting the unit, I taught them what graphs are, how they're used, what's essential for them, and how they're read. And I feel like that was essential for this lesson. I used their background knowledge, especially of like heights of different things, like if it's longer, it's larger, if it's shorter, it's probably smaller, and then also just their use of numbers to begin reading the graphs. Good. Well, how did this lesson lead to what was coming next? I used this interactive lesson to begin their knowledge of graphs, so that we could expand on that idea, start looking at pie graphs and other sort of data, not only for this lesson and for this unit, but so my students can begin tracking their own growth and their own data within the classroom, so they can actually take responsibility for their growth and their own learning. Good. Well, that begins to answer my next question. Besides the data analysis within the classroom, have you thought of any other real-world examples you could incorporate within the classroom, such as weather, whether they're tracking sports games, etc., just to give them more real-world examples of why it's necessary? Absolutely. Actually, in part of our science unit, we are going to start talking about electricity and conserving our environment. So I wanted to integrate a lesson based on how much electricity we use in the classroom every day, and how we could save by turning off the lights when we go to PE music or lunch, those kind of things. Because so as a class, I wanted us to calculate if it costs $5 an hour or whatever for electricity, how much we use in a day and in a week and even in the year, and then go on. So let's say we save an hour or 2 hours a day with electricity, turning them off while we're not in the classroom. We could calculate that together and see how much money we spend and how much we could save as a whole class period. And then from there, I want them to think of their own idea, whether it's how much time you spend in a day. You spend how many hours sleeping versus video games versus homework, etc. And they get to create their own graphs and their own ideas based on their own data collections. Good. One thing I wanted to positively note as well is your relationship with your students. You can definitely tell that you have a great connection with them, and that really helps with your classroom management. So I feel like the lesson went very well, especially your content knowledge with your students, and your communication with them. You didn't, talk a great deal. You talked for about 10 minutes, and then you let the students lead and go on with their activities, and you actually made the classroom very student-centered. I know we're trying really hard to get to a student-centered learning environment, since it has been very teacher-centered, and now we're adapting to the other. One thing that I did notice is your differentiation within the classroom. If you could maybe point this out a little bit farther. I know it wasn't very in there very long, just for this one lesson, but I did notice you have a wide range of students in your classroom, yet the differentiation, the lesson was basically the same for everybody. I did notice, some of your placements in your seating for differentiation, but how else did you differentiate within the classroom for this lesson? To be honest, I really didn't have quite a lot of differentiation. I did the differentiating of the seating. I have one student with an IEP, and they need to sit closer to the front, so I did that as well, meeting their IEP needs. But for the lesson itself, I didn't really have a lot of differentiation. I wasn't really sure. I figured all my students are capable of making a graph, and using the data that they collected around the room about their favorite snacks. So I wanted to maybe keep my differentiation mainly in seating for this lesson, since everybody could participate. Okay, good. One thing that I would point out, like I said, you do really good with your students. You have that great relationship, that great bond. However, even though every student can do it, you can differentiate beyond that. For example, maybe give harder questions instead of every single person having the exact same question about what their favorite candy bar is, and them going around and taking tallies, and then implementing that into a graph. What about if they could come up with their own question? Higher levels of thinking, they have to create it, they have to synthesize it, then they have to go out, find the data, and evaluate that data. You could have some students have 3 options versus some have 4 or 5. Just those kind of things are different ways to differentiate within the classroom, and they're just, little simple fixes. So overall, I feel like your lesson was very well. You were proficient in most of the things, as you can see on your example of the chart of where I ranked you. Do you have any other comments or concerns? No? Okay, great. So I'm going to finish up the paperwork here, get it signed off. We can discuss it. If you go to sign your copy online, and if there's something that you're like, after thinking about this, I'd like to point that out more, or you'd like it fixed, please feel free to come into the office. We could sit down, we could talk about it more. But I really do thank you for taking the time to come in for your post conference. And if you need anything, please let me know.